everybody, it's Tom Budd here. Welcome to the next edition of The Landscape, and I am here in Tassie with my good friend Luke Tscharke, and we are going to chat about all things photography. Luke is a fantastic landscape photographer. He's going to tell us all about things. Best I don't talk as much as what he should. So Luke, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Tom, for having me.
My pleasure, Treasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a landscape photographer. I moved to Tasmania last year from Sydney. I have been photographing for 10 years and been doing it full-time for 2 years.
Right.
And yeah, I just have a real passion for Tasmania, so I decided to move down last year and thought I'd show you around a little bit.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Let's just move this down a little more. Tell me, the headphones are on silent. Does that make a difference?
I don't know.
Let's just change that up a bit. So tell me, why Tassie?
Well, Tasmania is a very diverse place. There's amazing seascapes, amazing mountains. I really love the flora and fauna. So many different species of plants that you can use as foreground interest. Like where we were with the lichen-covered rocks as well. Got dolerite columns. There's just so much on offer and so much character.
Character?
Yes.
Well, you've got a lot of character.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So, tell me, when I first met you, you work in corporate jobs. So what's your background career-wise?
So I'm actually a trained microbiologist.
Right.
So I used to test products for companies like Jacobs Creek Wines, what else was there? Vegemite, peanut butter for craft foods, and then also worked for Coca-Cola as well.
Right.
And did various roles with those guys in quality assurance.
Yep.
So worked in the corporate world for 15 years.
Right.
And eventually, my passion for photography basically took over from that point.
Well, when did that start? Have you always been a photographer, or is that something that's come along?
I've been photographing for most of the time that I was working full time, and I quite often, certainly towards the latter years, it felt like I had two jobs, because when I finished my day job, I would come back home from work and then I'd jump straight on the computer again and start editing all evening. So I really felt like I was doing a lot of work all the time. But that really helped a lot in terms of developing my particularly post-processing skills. And then when I'd travel for work, I'd also head out to I would try and make my trips so that I could stay out on the weekends and photograph in those different locations. So if I went to Perth for a work trip, I would go up to the Pinnacles or down to Dunsborough and shoot down there. So it was always handy to have that as well. Right.
So how is it that you came to transition out of that? What was the sort of tipping point to move out of the career as a microbiologist into photography as a landscape photographer?
Well, I think basically I just lost so much passion for what I was doing as a day job, and I felt like I wasn't getting any meaning out of what I was doing. And so I really wanted to, it got to a point where I just felt like I wanted to quit what I was doing. I just I'd been doing the same thing for 5 years, and I wanted to change. And I started to get some work in landscape photography, which is hard to do, and a lot of it was through my social media profile as well. And so I decided to see how it goes, and I initially thought it would be a 6-month sort of test to see how things went, and 6 months went and gone, and I was going okay, and so I just kept going, and here I am. So it's still always very challenging to make a living out of it, but at the same time, the lifestyle is pretty incredible. So being able to hang out with internationally renowned landscape photographers such as yourself is.
I was going to say, I'm glad you included me there.
Yeah,
wow,
that's right.
I was just waiting for that to drop.
That's right.
Perfect. Wow. It's interesting because of course you had that backstop, didn't you? If you wanted to, or if you needed to, I should say, you could have just transitioned back into the corporate world if it didn't all work out, so to speak.
That's true, and I mean, even now, I still think that, it'd certainly be a lot easier working in the corporate world, I think.
Easier in terms of making a dollar.
Yeah, absolutely, it wouldn't be easy in terms of the meaning part of it and getting fulfillment out of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having a regular salary coming in certainly makes a big difference. But at the same time, I feel like I've got maybe a talent that I need to work and develop and put out there. So that's I guess what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, and a talent certainly you have, and you've shown that with your following there on Instagram. Tell us how that came about, as I just adjust the microphone or the camera here.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea, Tom.
How is it that you came to grow your Instagram following to what it is now?
Well, when I was working for Coca-Cola, I moved. I used to walk to work every day, and then I moved out into the northern beaches, and I had a 1 hour commute each way, and that was initially very difficult because I hate being on the bus. There's no trains out in the northern beaches, but what I decided to do, and it sort of the move happened around the same time I went on a trip with my friend Dex to Iceland, and he was photographing and uploading shots to Instagram all the time, and all I heard about for most of the trip was Instagram and him posting on there, and I thought, well, that mightn't be a bad thing to try to do. It seemed like Instagram was, even though I felt like I was late to the party at the time, I thought it would be worth giving it a shot. Little did I know that the timing was actually still quite okay. Yeah. And so I always thought that Instagram was a platform for mobile photography, and I didn't realise you could actually put on edited photographs, which was something that I sort of became aware of, and so I decided to make a commitment, and my commute to work each way was social media time, and so I would edit the photograph in the morning, then run to the bus normally because I was running late all the time. And then
too busy editing on your computer.
Yeah, and then I would be I pray for a seat because there's hardly ever any seats. Yeah. Very hard to post and do stuff on the phone when you're standing up, trying to hold on for dear life. And so post and eventually over a period of time. Initially, I had no idea what I was doing at all, and I just decided to try and post every day, 8 o'clock in the morning, between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Yep. And I would engage with as much content as I could and just spend as much time developing my profile on the platform as I could. And so not many people can actually dedicate 2 hours per day to that. Right. And that's really what I was doing. And it just so happened at the time that I was doing it, it was Instagram. Facebook hadn't bought out Instagram yet, so there was much better return on things in terms of the algorithm. Well, there was no algorithm. Everything was happening really well. So
everything was working just fine until Facebook went and screwed it up.
It kind of was. Right. I really did notice a big change in how the platform operated after that. You didn't, like back in the day when you put out a post, if you had 1,000 people following you, every single one of those people would have seen your post at that particular time if they're all online. And now it doesn't work that way at all. Right. And it's restricted depending on many different factors, which no one really knows exactly what the algorithm does. Right. So it's a shame that that's there, but that's the way it goes. And everyone sort of knew that was going to end up happening once Facebook bought Instagram, and that's certainly what happened. So. Right.
Why you were posting in the morning, was there a particular reason for that other than just being on the train? Have you found a good time to post these days?
I was on the bus. It was I found mornings was better because I could post in the morning, and then then in the evening I could respond to all the comments that I got during the day. Right. And that way it was just a nice logical follow on. Yep. Nowadays, because I don't dedicate as much time to Instagram as I used to, I tend to post in the evenings, and normally the first hour of a post going up is the critical time. Right. Once you've got that hour done, so that first hour after the post is up, you should respond to all the comments. Okay. And then once you've responded to comments, you should also engage with other people that are on the platform at the time, because the viewpoint there is it's like a law of reciprocity on social media, where if you engage with other people's content, then they'll engage with yours, and that'll therefore help you get a better response on your picture. It's a bit of a game. I was always very aware of that at the time, and there's a lot of people that are playing the game a lot harder than I ever played it these days. Yeah. But that's the way life goes with those sort of things.
This light is not doing good things for my highlights.
Isn't it?
No, but hopefully we'll just push on.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's true.
I just want to focus on.
Do you want to get some sunscreen?
I tell you what, the hair. I'm sorry, everybody. The hair on both accounts is not at its best, or perhaps it is because
my hair's always at its best.
It looks fabo. Yeah. You've got a real style happening there. It's so critically important to engage with people on your platform, isn't it?
It is.
Not just to chuck stuff up and just go, all right, everyone like it, comment, thanks very much.
You can't really expect people to want to engage with your work if you're not engaging with them, because that's kind of the way it goes. If someone says hello to you on the street, you don't just keep on walking. You normally do say hello back, unless you're really rude. And I guess that's the way it goes on social media. If someone comments on your work or likes your work, it's nice to return the favour. And that's really what keeps places like Instagram ticking over.
It's a social interaction.
Absolutely, yeah. It's, and I think a lot of people complain that they're not getting very good, what you'd call engagement. They're not getting much interaction or interest on their posts. And a lot of the time that's basically because they're not interacting or engaging with other people's work. And so it is one of those places where you do have to put in the hard work yourself if you want to get the results out of it. And or, some people like to cheat, I suppose, as well, and do it that way, which I'm pretty against.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
Wow, you're muddying the waters there.
That's right. But
hey,
that's what happens.
Tell me how is Instagram like Facebook, where it rewards you for engaging more on the platform?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think if you, especially if you engage with other people, it's hard to say if it promotes your work more if you're engaging more, actually, but I like to think it does. It could just be a placebo thing as well, where you're doing it and then you notice it more so because you're already on there. But I don't know. It's
so how important is hashtagging these days? I mean, it was the buzz when Instagram first came out. Is it still important?
I think it's still important. Yeah, I think it's a way of cataloguing your image, and so you want to be able to show. It gives more of a chance for people to see your work, and so the more you every post you use, you get 30 hashtags. So it's always a good idea to use a maximum number of hashtags and try and find hashtags that are very relevant to the picture, that are linked to hubs that might feature your work, and features is one really great way of getting growing your account. When more people see your images on these other accounts, and then likely to click back through to your profile and possibly follow you. That's really how I grew a big part of my following.
Right.
Got a real issue with those trees, don't you?
They trees are just they're ruining me. How important is it then to hashtag those bigger accounts so they can possibly feature your work? Does it work?
Rainbow.
Beautiful.
I think it's important to do that. Well, it used to be super important, so I'd spend a lot of time investigating the best hashtags to use.
Right.
I just seem to see less images getting featured these days
because so many people are.
I think there's just so many more people on the platform. When you used to be able to stand out, higher quality images used to stand out more because there was a mix of mobile photos and edited photos online. And now I think that there's so many good photos now. The ratio of images that are likely to be the chance of yours getting featured above other people's is much less these days.
Right, so that's not as important.
Well, I think it's still important to get features if you want to grow your account, but I just think it's harder to get them now. You used to be able to get featured by some of the really big accounts that even have up to 1 million followers. And when you get a feature from an account like that, you can even get up to 1,000 followers from one of those one feature from one of those accounts. Even Tourism Australia, when they featured people's work back in the day, used to get quite a lot of followers out of it. And now it just doesn't seem to have the same impact. So I'm not quite sure exactly why that is the case, but that's becoming a harder way to grow your account now. And the growth rate now has really dropped off unless your account's very, very hot in terms of very popular. It just doesn't seem to be very easy to pick up numbers rapidly like it used to. Like I could pick up 10,000 followers in a couple of months in the old days.
So what's the key? Say there's somebody watching this today and they're like, all right, I'm new to Instagram, or I haven't got an Instagram account just yet, but it sounds good, I want to get involved. What advice would you give those people starting out?
I think just to be patient with it. It does take a long time. I've been on Instagram myself for 4 years to get to the point where I have been.
Right.
In those first 3 years, I grew up to about 95,000 followers, or not 90,000 followers.
Yeah.
And then the last year myself, I've only grown 2,000 or 3,000 followers.
Right.
So I mean, it does take a while to actually build these followings, and that's a real challenge sometimes.
But what about for those people who aren't necessarily wanting to have a following? What about those who are just wanting to throw their stuff up because they want to share their work?
Well, I mean, that's totally fine. There's absolutely, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are wanting to become Insta famous, and they're trying to push things to great lengths to try and get as much of a following as they can so they can get endorsements and things. But there's also at the same time, it's a legitimate platform to share work. It seems to be the default way. If you meet someone down the street and they go, what's your, where can I see your work, or what's your Instagrams, normally the first thing people say. So now it just seems to be the place where people first can engage with your work. And I think that's because most people have a page on Instagram, even if they're not a photographer, so they can still identify with that. But yeah, so I think it's a great place to be on there. It's just you just have to be aware that I always liken it to being a marathon and not a sprint. It's not something where you can make great inroads very rapidly.
Can I offer you a word for there? Patience.
Patience, yeah. Patience is a virtue in that respect, definitely.
Right. And how important is two things? Double-ended question here. One, the name you choose, your handle, I guess you'd say, on Instagram. How important is that? And secondly, how important is it to post regularly?
Yeah, look, they're both very important. So having a nice handle that makes sense, and generally is your name is the easiest one to do. Right. You see a lot of people starting out with a weird sort of handle and then having to rename their account down the track.
Which is easily done anyway, isn't it?
You can rename it, but once your profile builds to a certain level, it's very hard to change it down the track. So it's better to start off with a meaningful name initially.
Right.
But it's so easy just to have your own name. Like my account name is my last name, my surname. So it just makes it straightforward.
Spell that for us.
Tscharke.
Oh, slowly.
Yeah, Tscharke.
Tscharke for those watching. How important is it to post regularly?
I think it's really important. I've done a bit of a test on my own account in that regard. I was actually declining in growth on my account. I was actually losing up to 100 followers a month on my account because Instagram will gradually remove any dead accounts from their service, and that means that your following will go backwards. And so what I decided to, I was actually dared by my good friend Dex to post every day for 2 weeks, which I did. And after the end of 2 weeks, I'd managed to stop my account from declining and actually started to grow.
Right.
So for me, that's as clear a sign as any that posting regularly is very important for growth. But I think it's very hard to post high quality content on a daily basis or a very frequent basis. And so there's a bit of a trade-off there between you want to have a regular posting, but you also want to make sure that the quality of the content that you are putting up is very high. So I still think that it's better to put up higher quality content less often than it is to put up low quality content very often.
Right.
You don't want to be remembered for having average images.
Right.
So if you don't have a lot of great images, then it's better to just put up when you do have a good one.
Right.
If you are lucky like me and I travel a lot and I'm able to get to some really good locations and have a nice backlog of images to edit from, then you might be able to keep that up a lot longer. In fact, that's when I first started on Instagram. I was already shooting for quite a few more years than that, maybe 5 years I'd have been already shooting for. And so I had this backlog of 5 years worth of images that were ready to go. And so that really helped me grow my account really early on because I had some really good quality images ready to go as well. So
it doesn't have to be recent stuff that you're posting.
No,
people don't care so long as it looks good.
And I'll quite often put up an old image that I've posted on Instagram before because, back when I had 5,000 followers, I would have posted that image last. now I've got a lot more, so there's a lot of people that haven't really seen that image. People generally don't tend to scroll back that far through your images on your profile.
Oh, so what are you saying? It's okay to repeat stuff as well?
I think it is. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, as long as it's something that hasn't been posted for a year or two, I don't see an issue with that, because people tend to forget about some of your older images, and plus, they're great shots, so why not share them a bit more often? Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
It's nice to, like, some people do it on Thursdays for Throwback Thursday.
Okay.
But you can do it. Yeah. Just if you. I did one last night even because I couldn't find a recent shot to post. So you just find something older and whack it up there. So it doesn't hurt to do that from time to time, and gives your newer followers a chance to see some of your older work that they may have missed.
And you put a different caption to it to when you originally posted it? Yeah,
pretty well. I mean, it doesn't
Here's
really...
one I posted a long time ago.
You don't really have to say it's an old shot.
Okay.
I think most people now on Instagram don't expect the shots that go up were taken recently. Could have been taken any time. People are generally not so worried. I think back in the older days, I think people were expecting stuff to be a bit more recent, because the instant Instagram, it was all mobile oriented. So the idea was that it was something taken recently, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Right.
As long as you're not misleading people about saying you shot that place that morning when you didn't, I think that's probably the only time where you should be careful about it. But other than that, I don't see much of an issue.
Okay. Have I got anything else to say about Instagram before we move on to the next topic?
Anything else to say?
Don't
cheat.
Don't cheat. Don't buy followers, people. No, it's rubbish.
Don't use automation or use pods. It just makes it harder for everybody else that are trying to do it the right way. Yeah.
How do you go about, if you've got a picture that you've edited on your computer, how do you go about getting it up on Instagram?
I just edit it in Lightroom initially, then in Photoshop, as everyone probably does. And then I optimize it to 1080 pixels on the short edge. So like a square image is 1080 by 1080. A portrait image is a 4:5 ratio, so that's 1080 wide and 1350 tall. And so I do it that way, and then I use the Tony Kuiper sharpening action to sharpen that down. And save it onto Dropbox, and then I'll download it from Dropbox onto my phone. And I'll then, before I post it, I'll always optimize the file as well. Which is in terms of editing it actually in the app. And I find that just gives it a little bit of extra pop.
What do you mean by optimizing it? Like,
I just think that when you're editing,
or something, or?
When you're editing the file on your computer, you're optimizing it, or you're making it look as good as it possibly can look on your desktop screen. But when you put it on your mobile, it's going to look a bit different. So I think you can actually edit it again in the app, and just get it looking a little bit more exciting. Maybe boost the saturation a slight bit, or generally I contrast and try and optimize the contrast a bit. Pull back the highlights maybe a little bit.
Well, you don't want to blow out those highlights.
No, definitely not. Although that seems to be all the rage in some cases.
Yes, there has been a certain, moving on to that, there has been a certain sort of look to Instagram photographs in the past, particularly with young and up and coming landscape photographers who tend to have that sort of, what should I call it? Geez, I don't want to offend anyone. Well, it's sort of a more blown out sky, or backlit subjects, or ripping colour out, to have it be a little
desaturated.
Desat, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's just I think a lot of it is related to film emulations, making it look like a bit maybe giving it a vintage look, or different sort of folky sort of feel. And I mean, that to me, I don't really get into that. I think it doesn't really look that attractive, and I think over a period of time, those images are going to age and look like they were a bit of a fad. But I think that it is very attractive, and people talk about having different presets and different ways of editing their images to get different sort of colour looks and things like that. And then that becomes part of their sort of style, in inverted commas. But I don't. I think I like to just keep it as try and keep the colours as close to what I can remember the scene being as possible. I think that's
how important is style to your Instagram account? If you've got somebody coming onto it for the first time who's deciding whether or not to follow you, How important is it to look through your feed and see some sort of consistency in style?
I think it's reasonably important. I think you can overthink it though.
Right.
I think it's important to have different subjects interspersed throughout your feed, so that you don't
colours and different subjects?
colours. Yeah, like different primary colours. So if you have a green, then you can have a reddy based one, and then maybe more of a blue image, and sort of just make it, because basically people are going to visit your profile and they're going to have a minute or two, or probably much less time than that, looking through your feed, and they're going to make a decision whether they want to follow you or not. And a lot of the time it's just depending on how your feed looks. And so if you can make that feed or that grid of 9 images look visually appealing, then that is going to give people a greater chance of following you as well. So even some of the biggest Instagrammers even put a hell of a lot of thought into what image to post next, purely just so that their grid of images looks appealing as well.
There's a third-party app that you can download in order to be able to rearrange your feed already, can't you?
You can't rearrange it, but what it does do is you can never rearrange what you've already posted, but you can arrange the photographs that you're planning to post, so that you can work out which order that you can post them in order to have a nice looking grid. And there's one called Enum, E-N-U-M, or no, U-N-U-M, that does that, and there's a couple others that have that sort of feature as well.
Okay, fantastic. Tell me, thanks for that.
That's okay.
You've made a bit of a name for yourself shooting astro. How did you get into astrophotography?
Well, I got into astro. I can't actually tell you what it was that
you're going to keep that
particular.
No,
secret. Well, I mean, it's not a secret. I know that I enjoyed getting out there, and I always thought it was amazing that you could get out under the stars on a clear night, and all you'd have to do is dial in some specific settings into the camera and press the button, and then all of a sudden, hey presto, you got this crazy Milky Way shot on the back of your LCD.
Amazing.
And it's really really captivated me, and I've racked my brain trying to think of like the exact moment or particular shoot that I had that made me connect with it, but I think it's just something that grew on me over a period of time, and I managed to get known for doing that, and I could see that there was also a lot of people getting into it, so I decided to start offering astrophotography workshops, which have been selling really well, and I think it's just because a lot of people are really excited about getting into astrophotography, and it's something that's reasonably easy to do once you've got the right equipment. In fact, you can do it with pretty much any equipment, and you can go out after work at night and do it. So you can it's quite accessible to people from a time perspective as well. So I think it's a lot of fun, and what I really enjoy is actually the planning aspect as well, and working out where the Milky Way is going to be at particular times of the year, and then lining that Milky Way up with different features in the landscape. And
so it's a real combination of landscape photography and astro, isn't it? Because I've noticed that you're not just simply pointing your camera up at the sky and hoping to capture a nice shot of the Milky Way. You're looking to include really interesting landscapes to complement your
technically
shots.
what I'm doing isn't really the true astrophotography. It's what you'd really refer to as nightscape photography. And nightscapes are really something, a landscape taken at night, basically. And so technically I should be saying I'm offering nightscape photography workshops, really. Although I was
going to pick you up on
that.
I
know, and it's pretty poor,
misleading, and
a little misleading. Although a lot of people just
disgraceful.
A lot of people just it is still a genre of astrophotography, and I guess that's why it's always still called astro. But the subgenre, if you like, is nightscapes, and so that's what I really love to do the most. I like the challenge of incorporating the landscape into the night images. I think if you're just shooting, there's a whole another raft of technical things to overcome if you're just shooting deep sky or shots of the stars wholly and solely. But I think that technically there's still a lot of challenges in creating a great image with the foreground and the stars. You've got a focus stacking, you've got also stacking for noise reduction as well. You've got to get the focus points right. There's different lenses. There's some cameras that work better for low light than others. So there's a whole bunch of factors that can create a better image, and so it's really cool. There's always just unlimited opportunities to keep learning about it and getting better and better.
There is a lot to learn, isn't there?
There's a hell of a lot to learn, and it can be very frustrating to not get the results that you're hoping for. And sometimes, some nights, everything just works in your favour, and in other nights, it doesn't matter what you do, it just doesn't seem to work. And so it can go both ways. The best thing you can do is just get out there as much as you possibly can and keep practicing, and you will eventually get better at it.
How much of it is post-production versus capturing it in camera?
Look, it is post-processing still a huge part of it. I find post-processing is very hard because for me personally, it's about, obviously the shots are edited because the Milky Way never actually looks like that when you see it with the naked eye.
Yep.
But at the same time, I want to at least still keep it to a level where it looks real. For me, it's also quite important that it's not composited at all. So unless I'm really clear about that, I've done one or two images that are composites, but they're really clearly creative images.
Yeah.
Generally, I try to do it if I can at all, possibly in one shot.
Right.
Either that, or I'll do a focus stack so that the foreground's got one frame and the background's got another.
Right.
But it's really important to me that the position of the Milky Way and the foreground are true and correct.
Yep.
That they're not. I haven't moved anything around, or because for me, it's part of the planning process to work out where to be when.
Of course, that's
the
the exciting part.
That is the exciting part.
Yeah, and the challenge.
And it's what makes it so exciting when it actually does work out. There's a lot of times where you plan something and it doesn't come off because the conditions aren't right. So it makes the times when the conditions are right all that much better.
Right.
But I put a lot of time into my astrophotography post-processing, and it does take a long time to process a shot up to get to a point where I think it's worthwhile posting or releasing.
Yep.
And so it is. That's a huge part of the process. There's specific techniques that I've been able to work out that sort of give a bit of a better result. Probably more related to the sensors of the cameras that I use as well.
Yep.
The more processing you do, the better you get.
Is there a specific camera that people can use that are better for astro than others?
Oh, look, I think anything with a Sony sensor in it seems to be quite good these days. Canon 6D series seems to work quite well too.
Right.
But I use the A7R3
Yep.
at the moment, and also the Sony A7S.
Yep.
The A7S stands for sensitivity, which means that they're quite a bit better in low light.
Right.
And I find that they're just absolute beasts in terms of picking up the small amount of light, even in totally dark skies.
Yep.
And being able to recover shadow detail in the foreground, and gives you a lot of creative opportunities.
Yep.
And I also think that the Nikons look like they're pretty good. The D850 looks like a pretty good camera for astro. I haven't used one myself.
Yep.
There's a few really good cameras out there that you can use for astro, but certainly very, very happy with the Sony equipment. I think that's I don't know, there's been a lot of talk online about the Star Eater issue, where there's a noise reduction filter applied to the RAW files, and whilst I think it may soften the images slightly, there's certainly nothing to be that concerned about. I've won awards for images that are taken with the Sony gear, and no one seemed to be complaining when that happened.
Right. So you were recently rewarded with the top honour here in Australia for astrophotography. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I managed to somehow win the David Malin Astrophotography Award,
Yep.
Which was just announced on Saturday.
Congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, I was pretty honoured and pretty surprised, to be honest, as well.
Was that your first time entering?
No, I entered last year. I
Right.
won Editor's Choice last year.
Yep.
It is quite commonly regarded as the best, like the most prestigious astrophotography competition in Australia. And I think the thing that really blew my mind is that normally that competition, the winner is a deep space image.
Right.
In in terms of it's an image of a nebula or image of the Milky Way or something like that. So to have a nightscape actually win, I was sort of always a bit dubious that may actually happen, and so for it to be actually one of my nightscapes was quite a big surprise actually.
Awesome.
Very, very honoured that Dr. Malin actually chose my image as the winner.
Who is Dr. Malin? Tell us a little bit.
He's a world-renowned astrophotographer.
Right.
He's
more deep space?
Definitely deep space type work, but he's the thing that really is quite I'm very proud about, I suppose, is that Dr. Malin actually thoroughly investigates every image in the competition to verify their authenticity, to make sure that they're actually true and correct as per reality, I suppose, or the scene that was in front of the photographer. And apparently during his presentation he actually showed some of the entries and showed how they were faked, and actually he didn't named names, but actually ripped into some of the faked ones.
So no composites?
No composites at all.
Right. And is that stated in the terms in the
look,
rules?
I don't actually know if it is stated in the rules, but the whole point is that it's meant to be a celebration of astrophotography. It's not meant to be a celebration of Photoshop.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of why he does that. And and I'm certainly aligned to that, because I think that you can create all sorts of great things in Photoshop, but realistically it doesn't then it does take an element of the expertise or skill away that would be necessary in order to capture that actually in one sort of event. And it does take some of the special character away from it as well. If it's something that's created, it's not a special moment that happened in time, it's a special moment that happened in Photoshop.
Right. What did you win?
I won a $2,000 Canon voucher.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about that already.
Yes, that's right.
I thought it might have been $5,000 cash,
No,
and we'd be going out for dinner tonight to celebrate.
No, I heard you're buying dinner tonight.
Always.
Yeah.
Hey, you've won a few other awards too that have helped you along the way. What have they been? Because I think I came across you and first met you just on the announcement of the Epsom Pano Awards. You won with a beautiful lightning shot. Black and white.
I got a gold in that.
Right.
I got I think the one that I did well in was it was the International Landscape.
Was that it?
I won the International Landscape Photograph of the Year in 2015.
Okay, bastard.
Yeah, but you did well in that.
Yes, I know, but it's not about me. It's about you.
It is about you too.
Yeah, that's well in the past. My days are well behind me.
Oh, really?
I'm an old fart now. You're the new up and comer. Go on. So you did well in that. Anything else you've done well in, awards wise?
I really love being involved with the Australian Geographic Nature Photographer of the Year competition.
Right.
I judged that last year.
Yep.
And yeah, it's always a thrill to be part of that, and I'm shortlisted again this year in that competition.
Nice.
I think I met you in Adelaide at the exhibition a couple of years ago, actually.
That's right.
You were there.
That's right.
So that's a fantastic competition to be involved with.
Right.
So those sort of competitions are really cool.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's a good thing to enter competitions. It helps you to critique your own work, work out which images are ones that people like to see, and people, they're generally the ones that get rewarded. The ones that impress the judges are probably going to impress other people as well. It's not always the case. I think it's a fun thing to do. Some years I find it really hard to find images, and other years it seems to just be, they just seem to come out of the woodwork. So it's funny how it works like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly, it's entering competitions. A few people ask me, should I enter? And it's a tough one, because I was shooting for about 5 years before I even entered a competition. So it's not necessarily something that you can just sort of pick up a camera and then be pumping out award-winning images, although some people have an uncanny ability to actually be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I think it really helps to actually go through competition images and see what kind of work is being awarded.
Yeah.
And it gives you a bit of an idea of the kind of imagery that you may need to capture in order to get an award as well. And quite often you'll find that award-winning imagery may actually be a bit different to the imagery you like to capture initially, and so you have to make a decision whether or not you actually go out and try and create imagery specifically for competitions, which is a bit of an interesting concept.
Yes.
I'm in a happy space in some ways where I feel like a lot of the images I create are can be awarded anyway. I'm not necessarily chasing that, although I know there are instances where I sort of think a bit more along the lines of what would be awarded in competitions. And I think having a really strong, clear composition, a really strong central element, very good light, doesn't necessarily need to be about the colour so much as it is about the light and the shape and the subject. And if you can do that just in your photography in general, you're likely to be producing competition-worthy images anyway.
Right.
Certainly, in some cases, what does well on Instagram can quite often do well in photography competitions, because stuff that does well on Instagram or social media generally has to have a significant amount of impact to the viewer to get the reaction and engagement, and that's the same as what it might do for the judges when they see it. So, not always the case.
How do you go, just to backtrack a little, let's move on to the fact that you're living and working down here in Tassie. How do you go about shooting astro down in Tasmania, for goodness sake, where it's cloudy half the time?
Well, it's actually pretty good on the east coast in Tassie, and you can get some remarkably clear skies during the year. So it is it can be a little bit harder, especially down in Hobart. The thing that's really amazing about Tasmania is the aurora. So one of the big reasons why I wanted to move down was to have the chance of actually being able to photograph the aurora, which I've been able to do several times now. And it is just as exciting to photograph it down here as it might be in Iceland or Norway or places like that.
Okay.
Mainly just because you can do it, within half an hour of home. It's a pretty amazing feeling. And so I think that sort of thing has been pretty awesome. So it is a little bit more challenging. I think the skies certainly are a little cloudier than other places, but the cool thing about Tassie is that you can generally drive somewhere on the island and find a patch of good weather.
Right.
And so quite commonly that is just where we've been, up on the east coast. Tends to have the clearest skies, which works really well for east-facing compositions earlier in the Milky Way season.
Right.
And so that does tend to be where I gravitate to. But
how do you go about doing that sort of research? Are there particular apps you use in order to know where to go?
PhotoPills is pretty good. There's also Photographer's Ephemeris. There's also Stellarium. There's a few really great apps that you can use that will give you that kind of information. And you just line everything up with your subject and work out the best time to be there based on the app. And all of that planning is really, it doesn't really take that much time, and it can save you a lot of time down the track in terms of getting to a location at the wrong time or things like that. So it's pretty good.
But of course, everyone can learn more about that if they come on your workshops. How do they find out more info about your astro workshops?
They just have to go to astroworkshops.com. And there will be some information on there of the latest workshops. We don't actually have any available right at this minute, but we are working on having them available for next year.
Right.
We're sort of in between seasons. Basically, the Milky Way season finishes in October, and then we'll start up again when our workshops normally start in April or May next year. So we'll have them listed soon enough. But if people sign up to our mailing list, which is astroworkshops/subscribe, then they'll be able to. We'll send a mail out when the workshops are available for booking and that sort of thing. So
One last thing. Tell us about what you'd like to achieve by being down here in Tasmania and photographing landscapes here.
Oh, look, I'm not really down here to achieve anything in particular. I'm just down here in Tasmania because it feels like home to me. And I think it's really important that you spend time in places that you really connect with and really feel passionate about. And I certainly feel very passionate about Tasmania and the amazing wilderness that exists here. If anyone doesn't really know why one would feel so passionate about that, I really encourage you to skill yourself up and actually do spend a few days out in the wilderness, especially in Tasmania or elsewhere, and actually have a bit of a better connection with nature. And if you can do it on your own, do it safely, of course, but it's a pretty incredible feeling when you actually spend some time out like that. And so for me, being close to that is really important, and also just having a really great bunch of people down here that I can call my friends is absolutely fantastic as well. So I don't know, like I don't really know what if I'm necessarily trying to be successful with what I'm doing. I'm just trying to try a few different things and see what works, and try and make some income and try and survive, and and see where things go from there. I don't really have a huge 10-year plan or anything like that. I don't think I think things change way too quickly to really have things worked out like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that. That's been a great chat. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for showing us around Tassie the last few days. We've had some great discussions, and we've seen some great things around the east coast of Tasmania. A beautiful part of the world, something that I'd never spent a lot of time doing. So appreciate you showing me your backyard, and
very welcome.
Hope that I can return the favour at some stage, and just let people know about how they can find you online again. So it's it's Tscharke, as in TSCHARKE for your Insta.
On Instagram, yep.
And then also the Astro Workshops.
Astroworkshops.com. My website's lukesharke.com as well. So you can check out my work on there. Feel free to say good day, and hopefully see you around.
Thanks very much, Luke.
Thanks, Thomas.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. See ya.